Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechta Sotah daf Chav Ches. We are going to begin on the very last line of Chav Zayin Bebeis by the Gemara. So, based on the words of our Mishnah, which is all the way to the top of the Amud, Kishem Shemaid Baikin Oisa, just like the waters test her, and if she's guilty, she's punished in this way by drinking. Kachamayin Baikin Oso. It will also be boidik him the same, because it says uvahu, and therefore because of that drasha, we also are going to say that he's going to be punished. Now the Gemara wonders, O Solomon, who is this guy we're talking about that's being punished? Elim labal, maybe her husband is the one that should be killed. What do you mean? Baal Mayav, he didn't do anything wrong. He's one innocent person in this situation. If you want to tell me as we continue Chav Chesam and Aleph, that if there's an avain, for example, it says Rashi, Shabol el achash nistra. So the truth is, after she secluded herself, she becomes usher not only to the boil, but also to the baal, to the husband. So if she had tashrish with her husband afterwards, he did an avera, he did something wrong. So ki isbe avain midida, if there's an avain by the wife herself, mi badkile maya ladida, are we going to be boidik him? Vatanya v'nika ish mi avoin v'isha hahi tisas avoina. So in this situation, we're talking about where the husband is clean from sin, and the woman is going to bear the sin, the punishment, which means only when the husband is clean, he did nothing wrong, he didn't have bia after she was already nister, after she was usher, then, only then, if he's manukami avon hamayin boit kenes ishto, it'll test her. However, if he's not so innocent by having tashmish with her, so you can't say that just like she's going to get punished, so he'll get punished. Him, that cannot be referring to the husband, because if he did something wrong, then the Mai won't do anything, and if he did nothing wrong, then the Mai will be Baidiker only. Says Rashi, Shlobo leha mishinistero lav ishahi tisa vaina. Shiabad kuhamayim, the water will test her. The elwa will boil, which is what we said before, that this is telling you that just like she's going to get punished, so too the man that she committed adultery will also receive the punishment. Lisni kediktani, seifa kashem shasula bal kachasula boil. So why doesn't it say it a little bit more clearly? Oil will boil. Veresha, I did the tani osa, tani oso. Say if I did the tani bal, tani boil. So it just contrasts the language, even though it's true, it was a little bit more confusing. The fact that our Mishnah said the word oso, which was a little bit ambiguous, so it was shaykh that maybe you could think to have a havimin, as the Gemara did, that's talking about the husband, the baal. No, it's the boil. Shnemar uvo uvo. Now, these words, uvo, are actually found in 3 different psukim, all taken in Sefer B'midbar Perek Hey. First of all, in Pasuk Chaf Beis, it says uvoy hamayim hamayrim ha'ela b'me'ayich. So it says it the first time, that this is what will end up happening to her. And then again, 2 Pasukim later in Chaf Daled, it says v'hishkas isha esmei hamayim hamarim, that she drinks this water, and by doing the uvo hamayim hamarim, it enters into her body. And then a third time it says uvo, in lengthy pasuk of Zayin, v'hishkas hamayim v'haisa im nitma v'timomal ba'isha, if she did something wrong, uvo, third time it says uvo hamayim amarim lamarim, and if what ends up happening is v'safsa bitten of enough iricha, and she ends up dying. So why does it say the word vo 3 different times? So the Gemara asks the question, how does he know, based on what we said in the Mishnah, that just like the mayim is baidik her, it's also baidik the boil, because it says uva uva. So what does that mean? So in fact, the Gemara iboilu bo uva kaimar. Is it because there's an extra vav? Says Rashi, me read boy the vav. Oh uva kaimar. Maybe the fact that it's repeated in the pasuk, because actually says it 3 times, so that's what the drashas come to tell you. Tashma, Kishem she'asur ba'al kach asur boil. Just like she's going to be usher to her husband, she's also now usher to be with a boil. Shnemer nitma vin nitma. Now, over there, we know that nitma vin nitma is an extra vav. So therefore, we're going to say it's the same thing. Uvo, it's an extra vav. V'yadainti boy, but we can still ask the question: nitma kaimer or nitma vin nitma kaimer? And maybe we need the bach over here. Nitma vin nitma kaimer or im nitma vin nitma. So there's different gear size over here. Says Rashi. Dahagufa miboyla nitma vin nitma darish mariboy vav ochad nitma v'chad vin nitma kedarish. In other words, it's asking that goof of the same question can be asked over there. Tashma in the tiny sefer Rabbi Omer Shnei Pamim Hamur b'Parsha. It says it 2 times in the Parsha. V'nitma echad bal v'echad boil. The fact that it says v'nitma second time, not only is she usher to her husband, she's also usher to the boil, to this man. V'chlal Rabbi Kiva vavi kadarish. And therefore now it must be it's based on the extra vav when it says uvau. Hilka Rabbi Kiva she's a kroiksivi. At the end of the day, there's actually 6 psukim. What do you mean 6? Because Rashi says shlosh uvok subum sham. As I already mentioned, there's 3 times it's mentioned, and Rashi, even though it's on the side over here, Torah or it brings them down. Uvo hamayim amarim ha'elu imiach lisvayis beten. Well, lanu de beten. First to tell you, it comes to the stomach, then the yarech, shol hoitzi laz, as we saw in the first parak. The second, another time, v'chad v'hishkas ha'isha esmei hamorim uva'u b'amayim with savo. It's like a savo. It's like a commandment, a decree. This is what's going to happen. Shekadosh Baruch goizer shiavo hamayim hamorim. That Hashem's going to be goizer on this woman if she's guilty. V'chad lasiya is what will actually occur to her. V'hishkas hamayim v'hoysa im nitma v'goimer. So they all have different purposes. So the fact that it says Uval 3 times, and they all have a vav, so therefore that conjunction makes it as though there's keel like 6, and therefore it's like this. So the link is just one is the woman's commanded, as a woman there's a decree on her, and the other one is it's a decree or command that's placed on the boil. One is what will occur to her, and what will occur to the boil. And again, one is this knowledge of this information for him as well as for her. For Rabbi Tlasik, there's 3. Those 3. V'Rebbe kashem shemayim boyd kenosa kach boyd kenoiso minole. So if there's only 3, so he doesn't learn out that just like these things apply to her, they apply to him. So then how does he know this? That they'll be boydik the boil. So he doesn't learn out from this vav yisera, but rather nafleim medatani with savos betin v'lan pil yerech. The fact that the pasuk repeats itself and mentions what happens. Bitnoi v'rechoi shel boil. Even though Poship Shah, it's referring to her, the fact that's repeated, it's saying that he will be killed in the same manner that she is killed. Ata'omer bitnoi v'rechoi shel boil. You're talking about it's referring to the boil, this man. Isn't it really referring to the woman? Yeah, because you omer b'tzavsa bitnoi v'nafli recha hari bitnoi v'recha shel nivelas. Where that pasuk is already specifically talking about the woman. So why do you have these extra words? So the extra find that this is repeated is saying that these parts of his body will also be affected just as hers. V'idach and Rabbi Akiva, what does he do? The fact that it's repeated litzlis betin v'lan pil yerech. So ahu the moidal koyin the betin bereisha v'hada yarech. It's that the Kohen should notify her that this is the order. That first she will be affected by the stomach and then by the thigh. Shul hoitzi laz al mayim hamodim. So no one should be moitzi laz on these words. The fact that she should know exactly what happens, so as she dies, it'll be clear that this was not just some coincidence, but it was as it was described. The idach. So How does the other Shita learn this notion of Shul Hoitzi Laz? Im Kain Lichtakra Bitna Virecha, my Betin Virech, Shemamina will boil. So that we went on the boil. The Emikulu Hachahud Asim Kain Lichta Bitna Virecha, my Betin Virech Shemamina Tarti. So one is talking about that the punishment happens to the man also, these parts, and also in this particular order, and this is how the Kohen needs to inform her. Omer Yeshua Kachayan Darish Zacharia Hu. Taraban Shalosh Palmim Hamur Baparsha. 3 times it says Im Nitma Nitma V'Nitma. Lama. Why does it mention this 3 times? Echad Baal. One is to say that she's usher to her husband. The Echad Boil. The second time it says it is that if she is in fact Tameh, even if she doesn't drink and she admits to it, she's usher right off the bat. Even if before she drinks, once she's nister, she's usher to the boil. The Echad Truma. And also, she's not allowed to eat truma. Says Rashi, Shafil hi bas kayin. Even if she's the daughter of a kayin, ubal kayin, and even if her husband is a kayin, nisl min truma. Doesn't make any difference. If her whole life has been nothing but eating truma, at this point she no longer is allowed to eat truma. Divrei Rabbi Kiva. Amar Yishmuel Kavachaymer. I have a Kavachaymer, so that you don't need to learn this out from a pasuk. I can learn this whole notion from a Kavachaymer. My Garusha, when it comes to a Bas Kohen, daughter of a Kohen, Shumateres Latruma, that let's say her husband dies. So she goes back to her father's house. Says Rashi, Bas Kohen, she is Garsha, Yisrael, V'zer Einla, she has no children, so Shumateres Betruma, because of Melechem of Yataychel. Nonetheless, Asulat Kahuna, once she gets divorced, she's not allowed to marry another Kohen. So it has to be the case of a Gerusha. So again, that's what it says. If a Mas Kohen who was a Gerusha, so she's allowed to go back to her father's house to eat Truma, but she's no longer allowed to marry another Kohen because a Kohen's not allowed to marry a divorced woman. So this Sotah, she asura b'truma, since we already know that she's asur to eat truma, as we established, edudin she asur kahuna, so it's a davar pashit that she's going to be asur to kahuna as well, based on this kavachomer. So matamar v'hi nitma v'hi lo nitma, matamar v'hi nitma v'hi lo nitma, im nitma lama shaisa. If she's telling me why is she drinking, im lo nitma lama mashka. So how do we understand this pasuk? So Magadacha tells you, Magadacha Chasev, Shahasafik Asura, that maybe she is Tameh. Mekanata Don L'Sheretz. And from here you could learn a Kavachaymer from a Sheretz, says Rashi. What's a Sheretz? Safik Naga Petaharai, Safik Lo Naga. We're not sure if a Sheretz touched Taharos. Demachsakinan Lo the Tuma Masafik. In the case of Safik Tuma, where a Sheretz possibly touched Taharos, so we're strict. Because Mas Saita Mekanata done L'Sheretz. Mas Saita Shalo Asaba Shagig Kamezid. When it comes to Saita, we do not say that Shagig is the same thing as Mazid, because if she was forced upon, it was an oinus, so it's not something which is her fault. Her fault if she's a Bas Yisrael, and therefore she's not going to be ushered to her husband. Only if it's baratzon, says Rashi. L'sevihilo nispasa, l'suraha nispasa muteris. V'odin l'shagig ishtov eishes ish imoi bebayis and nischaven l'ishtov nisdam l'loi avzu v'avhishkagig sver shehibalo. So it could even not even the case where she was actually raped, but even a situation where she somehow made a mistake as to who the man was. That's a shagig. So shlo asaba shagig kamez v'onis karatzain asaba safek kavadai. We still say that when she's a suffix, the fact that she secluded herself, we actually learn out from here. Anytime there's a suffix b'rshus hayachid, so this is the case because she secluded herself in a private domain. We don't know the status. We consider kavadai that she's completely usher. So sheret shasu by shagig kamez v'onis karatzain. It doesn't make any difference when it comes to a sheretz what the intention was. Eno din shiasa by suffix, as we continue chavchasam abeis kavadai. At that point, once, even though it's a case of a suffix, we don't know if necessarily the sheretz taka did touch the haros. We say that masafik we're going to be strict. Umemakam shabasa, and from the place that you learn it. In other words, since we're connecting it to Sotah, so we can continue to learn further. Mas Sotah, when it comes to a Sotah, which again is the whole notion is a suffix, did she have committed adultery, did she not? We're not sure. Which is a Rishus HaYachid, is only when we're talking about in private, because she secluded herself. Av Sheretz Rishus HaYachid. The case of a sheretz, in which we're not sure whether it touched Taharos, has to be also in a case of a Rishus HaYachid. It's only in a situation when we're dealing, because of Sotah, there's Das Lishoyel, there's a person there. We could inquire and ask you if you were Tameh, and this person, namely this woman who's a Sotah. We may not necessarily believe her completely, but there's someone there you can ask a question to. So too, when it comes to a sheretz, it's the same thing. Says Rashi, what is that? Im nitmis, im lav, right? Did you become tummy or not? It's because there's someone there. That's what we can learn out from a sotah. Asafik toma, darshesh boy b'noigeya zedas lishoyel. There's someone there to ask. Im nog im lav. Was this sheretz in contact with the taharos or not? And then the person says, I don't know. Going adam o taharos shahaya adam oisik b'hem. There's a person around that they just don't know. So in other words, the whole time that we would apply this concept of a sheretz potentially touching, therefore it's a suffix, it has to be in Rishus HaYachid like a Sotah, and it also has to be that there was someone there to ask. And the suffix is because that person still doesn't know. But it's not that there was a sheretz there and there was just no one around at the time. Then we wouldn't apply the dinim of Sotah to it. Okay. So Mikan Amru Devishesh Bodas L'Shaya B'Rishus HaYachid Sveiko Tameh. And that's what we learn. It has to be, just like the sheretz, it has to be only in the Rishus HaYachid, not in Rishus HaRabim. Suffix Rishus HaYachid is Sveiko Tameh from a Sotah, so that the only time we're going to say that the sheretz is Matama is definitely in a situation where it's Rishus HaYachid. Also, it has to be that there were people there. There was someone that you could ask. However, we can infer Rishus HaRabim Sveiko Tahar. In the event that it's unsure what the deal is, but it was out in the public, because just like a Sotah, if she's not secluded, but she's with another man at some park with thousands of people around, that's not considered to be the dinim of Sotah, because she is Rishus HaRabim. So in that case, it's only suffix Rishus HaYachid we consider her like a Sotah. However, not Rishus HaRabim. So we're going to say the same thing. Anytime there's a doubt in Rishus HaRabim, we're going to derive it from Sotah that the din is that the din will be tahar. Same thing. Even if you're in Rishus HaYachid, again, it has to be there's someone there, just like a Sotah, to be able to ask questions. Rabbi Shmuel, Amr Bikiva Truma Umahadir Leihu Kahuna. I don't understand. First you're mentioning Truma, and then afterwards you're talking about Kahuna. Rabbi Kiva never mentioned anything about Kahuna for the Rishus HaYachid to argue and bring a Kavachimer. The Su, Rabbi Kiva Kahuna Manole. How does he know this whole din that she would be usher to Kahuna? We don't see this. It says Rashi, Kavachimer who lo Yoef. He doesn't learn out the Kavachimer. Maybe he just doesn't need a pasuk for that. Says Rashi, why? The Mela Surah. It's obvious she's going to be usher to Kahuna. Why? Says Rashi, Shari Asaba Hakasaba Saita Suffix Zaina Kevadai. Because we're saying that she maybe had the status of a Zaina, and therefore a Zaina will usher Abawa. And therefore she's going to be usher to her husband. Hilka Chagabi Kahuna Nam Yasira. And therefore, obviously, if there's a suffix zayin, that's why she's usher to her husband. We also know she's usher to a kohen. So maybe you don't need a pasuk, because once we see that she's going to be usher to her husband, because there's a suffix znus, so it's something that she's a zayna, so therefore because of that, she shouldn't be allowed to marry into kahuna either. So maybe he just doesn't even require pasuk based on that. As we continue to Chavtas Amud Aleph, So Shahari Asaba suffix Zaina Kazaina, this is what we just said, that when it comes to a Saita, it's a suffix if she was Mazana, but we still make her like a Zaina to make her Aser to her husband. So Truma Nami Loti Boy Kra. So Truma then should also not need a pasuk. Shahari Asaba suffix Zaina Kazaina. So you shouldn't need any pasuk for that either. El Rabbi Kiva Arba Kroiksivi. There's 4 psukim. V'chadlo Baal, v'chadlo Boil, v'chadlo Kahuna, v'chadlo Truma. And that's what these are. That she's usher to her husband, to the boil, to eat truma if she's a kohen or Ashes kohen, and also she's now usher to marry a kohen. Rabbi Shmuel tlasa kriks if there's 3. Chadlo bal v'chadlo boil v'chadlo truma ukahuna asi b'kav chaymer, and the ones are kahuna from a kav chaymer as we saw before. Rabbi Shmuel mamai the itzrach kral with truma. Why does he need a pasuk for truma? Ukahuna asbe kavachaymer, but when it comes to kahuna, he's saying you can have kavachaymer. Dilma ki itzrach kahuna truma sharia. Maybe the pasuk is telling you that she's asked to the kohen, but she's still out to truma. How do you know that she's asked to eat? How do you know that this pasuk is coming to ask her from truma? It's logical she's going to be asked from truma. Dilmi debal uboil. That it's going to be more like truma because it's comparable to the case of the Baal and the Boil, the husband and this man. Ma Baal Boil Mechayim, because just like the Baal and the Boil is talking about even Mechayim, like we're talking about right now, while he's alive, she's still usher to them. After truma nam Mechayim, she's still going to be she's going to be usher to eat truma Mechayim. Lafuki Kahuna Tili Achar Misa. However, when it comes to Kahuna, even after Misa, since she's a Gerusha, so she's always going to be Aser. Rabbi Kiva domi the Baal boil leislay. V'inami islay he does, but milsay is v'kavachamer trak v'chasav kroll. Stop there. Sometimes the pasuk ends up saying something even though you could learn it out from a kavachamer. Okay, which we saw that numerous places in the beginning of Masechtas Kedushin and elsewhere. Okay, question 4. L'Rebbe Shmuel tlasa kroiksivi. Wabal, Uboil, Watruma, Uvakahuna, Asim Kavachimer, which is what we just saw. So Amai Rabbi Akiva Masrach Dal Kroi. Why does he need 4 psukim? L'chara, you can do the same thing as Rabbi Shmuel. So either Rabbi Akiva Iluk Siv Kroi Yisera Lo Havim Rabbeinu Elo Kahuna Dechamira. Maybe he would have only said that she would be usher to marry a Kohen, but maybe not necessarily Truma, and therefore you need another pasuk to talk about Truma, or Milsi Kavachimer talk about Kra. You're right. The truth is you could have went off from Kavachimer, but nonetheless sometimes the pasuk will mention something, even though it could have been derived elsewhere. Okay, TA 8. Question. Ma hamakor, what is the source? Ma hamakor shasaita asura l'kahuna. How do we know that a saita is usher to kahuna? So TA8, I got all these correct, is Neseres Rabbi Kiva, according to Rabbi Kiva, because it says venitma. So since it says venitma, that's the drasha. Tashma kashim shesul labal. Again, it says it's numerous times. V'nitma echad labal ve'echad boil. So that's the drasha according to him. V'nitma is echad labal ve'echad boil. Again, the question is, how do we know that she's asur tekuna? And according to Rabbi Shmuel, kavachayim ma gerusha shemater so truma. When it comes to a Gerusha, she's allowed to eat truma after she gets divorced. She can go back to her father's house, but she's usher to kahuna. So a saita who's usher to eat truma certainly is enodin shasur kahuna. Certainly will be usher to kahuna. TA9. Another question on this short daf. Maha marker she'in bodas lishoel sveko mutter. How do we know that someone doesn't have das to ask? Sveko is mutter. So you learn out from Sotah. So Oma Sotah be'ina davka yesh bo das. So that's going to be one answer. We're going to see another answer on tomorrow's daf, but let's at least write this down. TA9. So one shot is we went out from a Sotah. Mikan Amr Davar Sheish Bodas Lishoyel Bershus Yachid Sveiko Tame. So we went out from a Sotah. The second answer, which we're going to see Mir Hashem next off, is from the pasuk Basar Shir Yiga B'chol Tame. Vaday Tame Hu Delo Yoichel, etc. Again, that's going to be a drush we're going to see tomorrow's daf. Question TB10. Madu tzarich beis psukim limud safik tumo lahachmir. Chad the Rav Gidol Omer Rav Habasar v'chad the Sotah, which I do not think we did. So with the Rav Gidol, we touched upon this already. The Sagabi Yishbo Das Benitmo Lishoyel will be in a Nami Benitma, but Sotah Nil B'Dafka B'Shasiyach. We'll see this again tomorrow's Daf Ad Kan.